We'll have more room if we come right up to the thing. I'm gonna practice shouting smoke. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's just start a fire. Come on over here. Come a little bit closer. So, again, welcome to our open house. My name is Captain Joe Cable. I'm the training officer here for the fire department. And you can come in close to this one. This one's going to be nice and small. Right there. So we'll do the big one here in just a little bit. But this is a small burn box. This was developed by a retired firefighter who through years of experience realized that there's different ways that we can educate the public on the way fires work, the way fires grow, the way fires burn. This is basically a miniature demonstration of what you're going to see with the big fire we have here in a little bit. So this will give you a little bit of an idea of how fire develops and how fire grows. You may watch on TV and ask questions of fires and you wonder why firefighters aren't going inside the house, why they're staying outside and spraying from the outside. Well, believe it or not, the gear that we wear to protect us is not fireproof, it's fire resistant. So it can catch on fire, our gear, if it gets too hot. Our gear can go from about 500 to 700 degrees before we, inside of that gear, really start to feel it. Now we can still operate it, but really a rule of thumb is if you start to feel the heat while you're inside, it's too late, it's time to get out. So oftentimes you'll see firefighters on the outside of a building based on the size of the building, the time, the smoke, all the characteristics. And what happens is the fire goes through different stages of growth and different stages of development. And what happens is, based on all of those different stages of development, we have to be trained and prepared to make sure we aren't going to get injured when we're trying to rescue or preserve your property. So as you watch this box, if you all can see, you're going to see the different development stages of fire. So we have the fire triangle, my little kids in the front. Do you guys know what the fire triangle is, the 3 parts of fire? Give me one. We have oxygen. What else do we have? We have heat, and there's one more.
Fuel.
We have fuel. Those 3 things have to be present for a fire to burn. Then we have what's called the tetrahedron, which puts it all together, and that chemical reaction that makes it ignite. And if you remove one of those things, and you're going to see that, we're going to remove the oxygen from this demonstration, you'll see how the fire dies down. It doesn't mean that it goes away, we just remove one of those elements. And then what happens when the fire department shows up is the fire's been burning for 5, 6, 7 minutes, the doors and windows are shut, the fire burns, it grows, and then it eats up, consumes all the oxygen in the house. What do firefighters do once we get to a house? Open doors and open windows. Well, what do? We introduce oxygen into the fire. That's why you see us come to the scene in all of our gear. We get our air packs on, we get our hoses all ready to go before we go inside. Because the moment we introduce that oxygen element, the fire increases. So it's got to be a coordinated attack as it goes through. One other thing that we do is we read the smoke. As we're driving to an emergency scene, we're looking on the horizon looking for smoke, and our crews will say 2 or 3 minutes prior to getting on scene, all units responding, be advised, I've got a column of smoke, or I have thick black smoke. We're listening to that, putting all of that into the formula of how we're going to attack this fire. And we can tell based on the color of the smoke, the way the smoke is moving, how fast, how slow, how thick, how thin the smoke is, what stage that fire is in. So we read that smoke, we watch what direction it's going in, and we make our decision of how we're going to attack that. And then one thing we want to avoid, the most dangerous situation for firefighters in any fire situation, is what's called a flashover. How many of you seen the movie Backdraft? Okay, that's another thing that we run into, is that when we introduce oxygen into a fire, as it sucks in that oxygen, it explodes out. That's called a backdraft. But the most dangerous situation that we deal with as firefighters is flashover. That's when everything in the room has hit that temperature of ignition and will flash. It will all catch on fire at one point. And remember, the gear that we wear, this coat, this helmet, these gloves, pants, is fire resistant, not fireproof. So if we're in that setting and our gear reaches that temperature, it will flash just like everything else. And that's a life-threatening, if not fatal situation for firefighters to be in. So what are we going to do here? All right, I'm going to give, this is Chris Sayers. He's one of our firefighters. He's done this for a few years, built this. He's going to explain to you a little bit, a couple of the steps he's going to do, but I want you to watch the characteristics of the fire.
So that's what this is. This is set up to show you. So if you imagine when Joe started talking, an ember or something fell behind your couch and it was sitting there burning. Now that's where we're at now. That's basically what I did, was I just started a little fire in the corner. And you know, he mentioned flashover. That's the point where everything in the room, the walls, the carpets, everything all at one time catches fire. That's what we're going to get to here in a minute here. He talked about the smoke, reading the smoke and seeing it change. You can see how the smoke has already gotten thicker. It's already gotten dense. It's going to start getting real dark. It's going to start, you know, showing us that the fire is progressing through those stages. So right now we're nearing flashover. We've got heat building up pretty well in there. You know, this is about the time we got our trucks set up in front of your house, and we're getting ready to go in there and start fighting that fire. So you can see flames coming out here out of the front. Right. So our job is to break the fire triangle. Right. We need to remove one of those elements of the fire triangle, or all of them. So we use water because it does very well with reducing the heat, and it does very well removing the smothering the fire so it can't get oxygen. So as you can see, it doesn't last very long. Once I bring that fire down, you get that white smoke again, you start to see that it's going back through the progression of the fire stage, and then once it starts getting heated up again, then it starts burning off that smoke.
So here's a little tip for you. If you're driving down the road and you see a column of black smoke off in the horizon, off in the distance, and as you're watching it, because we're all curious, right? That moment you see it turn from black to white, that's when you know water has been put on the fire. We've changed the fire and the smoke characteristics from that thick, dense, burning particles to now we've introduced water, and you're seeing a mix of steam and smoke. So, at that moment, if you're watching it, driving down the road, and you go, oh, that just changed colors. As long as they went from dark to light, that means probably firefighters or somebody put water on the fire. Just a nice little tip there for you if you're on a road trip and you see that happen.
So you see where we're at right now. It's blowing out the front door. We're nearing an untenable environment inside this house. We're getting to the point where that's not something we can go inside, right? So one of the questions people ask a lot is, why aren't firefighters going inside? You shrink down a little firefighter to this big and put him in there, he's not making it back out at this point. As it progresses further, it's going to get worse and worse. So before we can make entry and start actually fighting the fire, that's what we call a defensive mode, is where we try to prevent the fire from spreading to other houses around it. But the reality is we can't really go inside and save anything. We've got to knock that fire back down. So the heat, as the temperature level rises in the box, you'll notice that the smoke is mostly being consumed. Once the oxygen is out of the box completely,
so as the firefighters make entry into a situation like this, whether they're going offense or defensive, what we're trying to do is remove one thing from that fire triangle. Watch that characteristic change. So he closed off the front of that, took away the oxygen. Things are still in there, the heat is still in there, it's still super hot. The moment that we introduce that oxygen, we get that characteristic change. Now look, when he closes that, it knocks the fire out, but again, everything's still really hot. He doesn't have to take that flame and put it into the box, he can just put it right next to it, and he's igniting those gases that are coming from those materials. So fire will hide, it will sit inside of things and grow and smolder and smolder. The moment you introduce oxygen or more fuel or more heat, it's going to fire up. And it oftentimes will come back more dangerous. So you'll see the characteristic change as soon as he knocks off that oxygen, he's going to reintroduce that oxygen.
So right now the fire's out, but the heat and the fuel is still there.
So a lot of that is still the gases that are coming off. That's another reason, not only do we wear our masks and oxygen tanks for the smoke, it's all the gases that are coming off of the materials. One thing you will see in the big demonstration later is the plastics and the synthetic materials that are in couches and all of our home furnishings gives off significantly toxic gases. And so even if the fire is out, these things are still doing what we call off-gassing, which are just as dangerous, if not more dangerous to us as firefighters. So what we try to do is control the elements. And if we can remove one, two, or all three, then we'll be successful to put the fire out. But you see how he took away the oxygen, put the fire out, and really nature just did what it does, and now look how much more of this has grown.
So you see that we're in flashover now. The floor is on fire. Everything's on fire. The temperature now is rising really, really high, really, really fast. You see how I've been shutting it off by cutting the oxygen to it, and I've been having to relight it.
Now, I want to show them the smoke. So if you cover that up, if you think of these as the eaves of your house, look at those whiffs of smoke, how fast they're moving coming out of that box. That tells us this fire's hot, this fire's moving, there's a lot of stuff burning. We got to be pretty tactical and strategic in our attack. Once you introduce that oxygen, it changes the characteristic, it changes the movement of the smoke. But it will come right back if we don't put it out all the way.
So you see how I've been putting it out by cutting off the oxygen supply. Once I put that cover on there, that fire's out inside because it doesn't have oxygen. So it needs all three of those things in order to keep burning. Once the heat gets high enough and it still has enough fuel in the room, I won't need to light that anymore. And that's what we call a backdraft. Once this heat gets high enough that all it needs is that inflow of oxygen, then as soon as I remove that cover, you'll see that black smoke, and then you'll see it catch fire again on its own. So when the cover's on there, the fire is actually out, and that's why I'm having to reignite it. But like Joe said, you see, I'm not igniting any of the material. I'm just lighting the smoke.
Any questions of what you're seeing and what's moving? Yes, sir. Is the cube going to blow on fire? It's not. No, it's only what's inside that's burning. Okay? We have a lot of block houses here in Florida. At least the first floor is block. That becomes like an oven. All right, you see how much that's burning on the inside? But block's not going to burn. It's going to hold all of that heat. That's why it's more important that you get out as soon as possible. Any other questions? Y'all are doing great staying under the smoke. Yes, sir?
Is that made of titanium?
Steel, right? It's made of steel. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
How you doing today?
I'm good.
Awesome.
You?
Better than I deserve.
Good. We're glad you're here. All right, and in about 15 minutes, we're going to do an auto extrication demonstration. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for coming.
We need. Good job, man. You're really good at that. Let's cook marshmallows in there next. Awesome. I bet this is going to be longer than the fire sprinkler demo.